Hey friends, it's Ryan Brown. We are back on the podcast here in the new studio. And today I'm here with my good friend Kyle Felty from the law office of Kyle Felty. We're all suited up since I got an attorney in the room. So welcome, Kyle.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we've been working together a long time. Got a lot of respect for you.
Thank you.
And he's been in the business 13 years. His law office is now in Jupiter. It was in Gardens. Yep. What I love about you is that you're super approachable and you're always willing to help. And listen, this is the real estate business. Like, things are going to go swirly. Things are going to happen. And when you're working with an attorney, it's really good to have the cell phone. So, like, I can call you like at 9 o'clock at night and be like, hey, Kyle, what do we do in this situation? But I really appreciate that because you're always willing to help. You're always willing to keep deals together. But, you know, listen, if things get squirrely, you're there to fight too. Yep. So you're always there to protect your clients. So I really appreciate that about you. And you're such a good guy, and your team is incredible. So tell me just a little bit about yourself, how you got into law, and about your team.
Yeah. Well, first, I'd say the feeling's mutual. Always appreciate you and have nothing but great things to say about you and your team. I got into law. So my father was a real estate broker growing up. So I would tag along, and kind of an investor. So I would tag along with him. And I think my first thing I did that I felt like I really contributed for him was built back in like 1999 when the web came out. I was like, Dad, we gotta make a website. And I learned how to make a website. So I was like 16. So that's when I got into real estate, more or less. Went to Florida State and got a degree in real estate and finance. Lived up in New York and did commercial real estate brokerage for a couple years. Yep. Right in the city there, and then moved back to rural North Florida and sold real estate for about a year before I went to law school. So I was a broker, I guess, with my father, you know, as a kid, and then tagging along with him, and then for about 3 or 4 years. So my experience came, my interest in the law came from my experience as a real estate broker. So when I was in rural North Florida, I noticed there was a need. People were handwriting quitclaim deeds. There was all kinds of weird easements, and I was interested in it. When I was in New York, like a lot of people think, I had the perception that attorneys were deal killers because I was 23, 24 years old. I'd write this one-page agreement for a 20-year commercial lease, and the attorneys would come back with this lease this thick, and I would say, this is going to kill the deal. What is this? So I just got really interested in it. So just in my work in real estate, my lifetime, I was drawn to the legal aspect of it, and I noticed I enjoyed being creative and working deals. You know, so I felt like getting into the law would give me the best opportunity to do what I enjoy, which is help people navigate legal issues. So I went to law school and focused on real estate courses there, and was the president of like the Real Property Club and everything. And then ended up in Jupiter right in like 2009 was when I kind of got out of law school. And so it was all short sales, foreclosures. I did foreclosures for a few months. I was the bad guy that was in court, foreclosing on people. So I had to do that for a little bit, and then worked at a great firm here in North Palm Beach for a few years, and then went out on my own and kind of started building my own team. And so that's what interested me in the law, was just my background in real estate and my experiences with real estate, and seeing some of the issues people ran into, and just enjoying helping and enjoying navigating that and enjoying the problem solving aspect of it. The sales part of brokerage, I enjoyed it, but I really enjoyed like the problem solving, So practicing law really gives you the opportunity to problem solve. You run into a lot of legal issues, and sometimes they're not even really legal issues, but you can still, if you've done enough deals, you understand how to navigate things. So that's what drew me to law, and real estate law specifically was just my background in brokerage.
And I think that's what makes you great at what you do, is that you come from that background. Like, you actually come from being a real estate agent yourself, so you get it. Like, you understand, the back end of it. And that's probably why you click so much with high-end realtors. I mean, you work with some of the top realtors in Northern Palm Beach County. And, so they just don't work with anybody. They work with, it says a lot about your character with them working with you.
Yeah.
And it gives you just a unique perspective. And you're right. I mean, we're in the business of solving problems. Like,
yeah,
I feel like it's funny. I remember somebody telling me one time, like, your paycheck is going to be a direct correlation on how many tough conversations you can have. And that's like solving problems, have tough conversations. Like, it's not easy. We're in the real estate business. Like, things happen all the time.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll make that comment to my staff when it's like, this deal's this was wrong. This is going wrong. And I'll, kind of say, hey, or take a deep breath, say, hey, that's the whole reason we exist, because we're here to solve these people's problems. If it was all easy, we wouldn't need to be, our job would be futile. And, if you want a legal answer, and a lot of times people call me, and you've probably referred me to people, and they, have these questions, concerns, I say, look, it's just, here's a form and here's kind of how you do it. You know, you can retain me, but you know, this isn't that difficult and here's how you do it. And if people just want legal answers, you know, we were talking about ChatGPT earlier, and you know, you could type into ChatGPT, what's the landlord tenant law on this specific scenario? And you know, or you can spend a little time in Google nowadays. So I think the value in a lawyer isn't their ability to decipher the law. I think it's the problem-solving abilities and knowing the law, but knowing how to apply that and knowing how to have the interpersonal skills to resolve things creatively. Right. But you know, the old days of, you know, the lawyer grabbing the book and finding the statute and filing, you know, we're very transactional based, so we're always looking for solutions. Right. So I enjoy, so I really enjoy that and problem solving. I mean, that's what we're, and you know, I don't want to give the impression that every deal is a problem and scare people. 90% of them go great. Yep. But when there's a problem, people like the confidence knowing that we're involved and we're there to help solve the problems immediately before they become bigger problems.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, tell me a little bit about your team.
Yeah, our team is, we've got a couple other attorneys that are great. Kind of share the same, I guess, ethos, for lack of a better word. And we've got just a lot of solid people that we've been together for 6 or 7 years. And I mean, I think when you deal with our office, everybody kind of cares, I guess, for lack of a better word. We make an effort. You know, it's not just, I don't think we're trying not to give the impression we're just clocking in, clocking out. Everybody takes pride in their work. Yep. And everybody has their own personality, you know, and sometimes we match up with different clients depending on whose personality clicks with who. But yeah, I mean, I could sit here and brag all day about each individual person, but I think we have a great team. And I was telling you earlier, as a business owner, it's the strength of our firm is the team, you know, and 100%. I've been very blessed and fortunate. And I guess probably my skills as maybe finding good people is probably better than my skills as a lawyer. And it's probably more important because we have a whole team to support kind of our operations. And so, yeah, I think we got a great team. I could go into detail about all of them, and I'm really happy with all of them and really appreciate all of them.
Yeah, I think it's something that's like super underestimated, and it's something I know that you appreciate, and it's something I appreciate here. You know, the importance of building culture, you know, the importance of having a seasoned team. Because I remember when I recruited like a lot of the people that have been with me a long time, like the first couple of years weren't easy. Yeah. And now that people have been with me 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, it's like I feel like just so much more confidence in the team. Yeah. And it builds this like amazing, if you really are proactive in building your culture like within your office, man, you see it every day in the interactions with your clients. If you have a bad culture, or if you allow somebody to come in that's not a good culture fit, who has a bad attitude, who doesn't play by the same rules as everybody else, you know, it's a cancer. It's going to destroy everything.
Yeah, and it takes time. That's not something you can just
that's right.
You can't just hire your way out of it. I do sports comparisons all the time, but it's like you can't just, you know, you look at these any professional sport. You can't just go out and hire the best free agents and buy your way out of it. Yeah. You gotta draft the right guys, the high character guys, and you gotta bring in the correct, you know, the free agent that fits, the veteran locker room guy, and you gotta build that through that. You look at the successful teams in a lot of these professional sports, and they build. Most of the time, they try to do super teams, but a lot of times these teams that build through the draft are the best because you can't just you can't fabricate a culture. You know, it takes time to build it. So there's a lot of value in the continuity of the same staff and going through those different situations and knowing how we handle them. And I think the continuity of having the same team and building the culture. Anybody starting their business, I would say, just have patience and find the right people and just plug away really hard at it, and it builds over time. You don't just hire people and it happens, and you can't just go find the top, you know, guy or girl in that industry and bring them in and change things. It's a process for sure. Yep,
100%. So let's talk a little bit about Florida law. So one of the questions we get a lot, especially from clients moving here from out of state, especially the Northeast, is like, do I need an attorney to close on a transaction in Florida? Obviously, the answer is no. We're not an attorney state like New York is. Yep. But like, would you advise somebody to get an attorney? Is it necessary to get an attorney?
Yeah. So I think the pivotal question, I guess, is the title insurance. Yep. So, and we could probably do a whole another podcast about title insurance and what it is. But anytime you close with a lender, they're going to require title insurance. So in some states, you have to be a licensed attorney to issue title insurance. So New York's one of those. I think North Carolina, there's several of them. In Florida, you can be a licensed title agent. So there's some great title companies that they're not lawyers. They issue title, but they're licensed. They issue title insurance. So do you need an attorney? To close. If I'm buying a piece of real estate or something, do I need an attorney? You don't have to have an attorney. I mean, we could write it on a piece of paper and do a deed and do it that way.
Yeah.
But it's like a lot of things with law. Do you need an attorney to draft your will? You could do it. If you're wrongfully convicted of murder, do you need an attorney? No, you could go pro bono. So it's different. If I get a speeding ticket, I may not go hire an attorney and pay him top dollar to go fight it. I may call an attorney and say, hey, is this anything? What do I do? But if I'm wrongfully convicted of murder, I may say, yeah, I think I want to hire. So just depends, I think, on the transaction. I think it's always, if you're in the real estate business and it's something you regularly do, I 100% recommend you have an attorney that you work with and you've built a rapport with, and you can call for questions. And it's constantly on call. So definitely, if you're just, you're coming in town, you're buying a single family home in a platted neighborhood, I think it's good to have an attorney review, the survey, the title commitment exceptions, the estoppel for the association, and things of that nature. And you can usually find an attorney to do that at a reasonable price that I think is well worth it, because title insurance that you'll get at closing has exceptions. Just like any other policy, like a life insurance policy, if you commit suicide, that they don't pay it. There's certain. Right. Yep. So a title insurance policy will have exceptions. We're not insuring over this, easement that goes through your backyard, or we're not insuring against a code enforcement. So there'll be exceptions that you want the attorney to look at. And you also want to, if there's an association, homeowners association, or especially a condo association, I think it's helpful to have legal counsel look to make sure there's no special assessments. You're not going to have any issues with parking. There's no past due assessments due or anything like that. So I recommend everybody, when you're buying real estate, especially, have an attorney to take a peek at everything. I think the people who are probably watching this are in the real estate business or want to get in the real estate business as a regular course of business. I recommend 100% you need to connect with a real estate attorney and start building a rapport so that you can use them on all your transactions. But do you need to go retain the top attorney every time you do something? No, but you need to have that rapport with someone that can review those things for you. Yeah, I think you've had a lot of experience with that, where sometimes there's just things you would never know if you didn't have somebody look at it, and and it's a value add, because there's things that affect the value of your property.
That's right. Yeah, my wife and I invest in real estate, and every deal that we've done, I've always had you review it, and just because we have a relationship, you're super reasonable on your fees, and it's interesting because, like, a lot of times, like, because in Palm Beach County, the seller chooses the title company.
Yeah.
So I don't have a relationship with them. Like, if I'm the buyer,
yeah,
it's whatever title company they chose. Yeah. So we get the title commitment back, we get the survey, and, like, almost every time we found stuff, it wasn't anything major.
Yeah.
But just little things, like things that needed to be deleted off the title commitment. Yeah. Certain things on the survey that we needed updated. Yep. There was this one property we were working on where there could have been a huge chunk of land not even included, like in the deed sale. So we had to go back and make sure that was actually included in part of the original plat. Yep. So there is a lot of value there to use an attorney. What I suggest is, like, if a client is not using a real estate agent, because a lot of the realtors are just so great and they have great relationships. Yep. If they're doing a private sale, like you're buying your uncle's property or your neighbor's willing to sell their property, like in that case, like if you're not using a real estate agent, you got to use an attorney. Like you really should use an attorney to do that whole transaction. Yeah.
And usually, and you never want to put the burden on don't trust your real estate agent and don't put that burden on them to be your lawyer, because they're not, and that's not a comfortable situation, and legally they shouldn't be doing that. And they don't want, their brokers, not lawyers, but usually your real estate broker will know the attorneys in town. And I'd say that's what most of our referrals will come from, for our reputation, from somebody says, hey, can I have an attorney look at this survey? Or I'm concerned about the tenant that's in there and this lease. Who's the attorney? And usually your realtor can refer you to an attorney. And that's all, or you refer us people to that need help. But yeah, I think it's always worth taking a peek and having an attorney. But definitely, if you don't have a realtor, even more so, because you don't have any professional kind of guiding you on what's the standard and what the norm is and kind of monitoring things for you. Yep.
What would you say the value of using a realtor is?
Value of using a realtor?
Like, you have a lot of people say, "Oh, listen, I can sell the house myself. I'll do it for sale by owner."
Yeah. I would say even for me, like, or you, like, I've been a broker, I've been an attorney. I know everything that needs to be done. I'm very familiar with all that whole process. But I don't, if I was buying a place, there's a lot of value to me because, or if I'm selling a place, I don't have the time. There's a lot of communication. I got to contact with, I got to make sure the insurance agent's on time, make sure a surveyor's coming out, make sure the walkthrough's happening, meet with my carpenter or my contractor there to do this. So the biggest value is like with any industry. It's like I talked about as being a lawyer, you could defend yourself in a murder case if you wanted. So I would do the comparison of a carpenter, could I lay the tile in my house? I could watch a bunch of YouTube videos. I could make 25 trips to Home Depot. I could probably buy all the tools, and I could make 25 mistakes and eventually in a month have it done. Or I could save time, and I could hire a guy that does tile, or a guy or girl that does tile, and they'll be done in a day. So I'd say the same thing with a realtor. You can, especially as a buyer, there's no real extra cost to you as a buyer. Why wouldn't you have a professional that can save you so much time? And on the listing side, a lot of people try for sale by owner when the market's good. And maybe that's a good idea to just try it real quick. Ask your neighbors before you list it. But there's just so much value, and you're going to deal with an influx of calls. You're going to deal with appraisers that need to go see the property. You need somebody to kind of advocate you and talk to the appraiser about comps and things of that nature. It's just a lot of time involved. But also, if you're new to an area, just the expertise of knowing about the neighborhoods, about the school zones, and that kind of thing. So I think there's with a good realtor, there's a ton of value, and I would recommend it. But the biggest thing is just the time. It's like any professional. You're going to save a lot of time by using somebody, and you're going to avoid mistakes. Same thing. If I did my own tile job, a year later it starts cracking. I'm like, I should have hired a tile guy. So same thing with realtors. Like, I bought this house. I didn't realize, behind me there's they're demolishing that and putting a new develop there. So the view of the golf course is gone. A realtor probably would have known that. Could have told me, or a professional. But yeah, I think there's just a ton of value there. Just knowing the market, and then just knowing different professionals, especially when you're new to the area. You mentioned somebody from Northeast. If you're coming down, you've never been here, you don't know a soul. A realtor can link you up with reputable other professionals to kind of get you rolling and get your transaction done smoothly.
Yeah, we talk to, when I'm talking to buyers, like a lot of times, a lot of our clients are referred either from past clients, current clients, or realtors or builders, but we'll get them pre-approved and we follow up with them every single week. So sometimes you get these buyers that, hey, I walked into an open house, or I walked into, I called the seller on a property. I'm like, cool. Did you have your buyer's agent, with you, or did you let them know? And they think that they're going to get a better deal by calling the seller directly or the listing agent directly. And it's just not the case, because you lose all negotiating power. Every transaction I've ever negotiated, to me as a buyer, the value of a realtor is that negotiating piece. Yeah. Because it's that intermediary that can really try to negotiate the best deal. And then when the inspection comes in, like if you're just dealing with a listing agent, like their affinity is to the seller. Yeah. Like the inspection comes in, do you really think they're going to grind down their seller? Yeah. Because of some cracked tiles and a little water, moisture underneath the sink? No, probably not. You're probably going to get zero.
Yeah, I have two comments on that. So first is the one is just how listing agreements work. We'll talk about that. But the second was funny is that I find for myself, you've mentioned in the beginning, I'm very approachable and very friendly, but when it's time to fight, when there is an argument, you were very stern, and so I do deals of my own, little things. I'll do something with somebody, I'm like, oh yeah, just do it. We don't sign anything. And I think I start laughing at myself, like I would never, if I was my own client, I would say, what are you doing? Stop doing that. So for me, for most people, if you're a friendly person, you have this cooperation, it's like, I'll cooperate. He wants this. Okay, it'll work. But it's nice to have that third party to buffer and vouch for you, and have that realtor say, no, let's fight on this. Let's fight on that. When you're the buyer and you meet the seller and you're friendly, you're not negotiating really. You're just kind of fine. So it's nice to have an attorney or a realtor involved to help you negotiate, because when you're not, especially if you're not in business at all and you're not used to negotiating, So it's good to understand that, and there's tons of books out there about negotiating, and lawyers and realtors have developed those skills of negotiating and understand how to structure a deal and the timing of things and how to negotiate for you. Whereas if you're not, especially if you're not in any kind of business, you have to read, a realtor has been in the business 10, 20 years. For you to have that negotiation, even just not considering real estate expertise, just how to negotiate, you'd have to read tons of self-help books, And then I would say, as far as having a buyer's agent or not, I don't want to say there's not any scenario where you can't save money in that regard, but generally how that works is when a seller lists with a realtor or a salesperson, the listing agreement will say that the seller will say, I'm going to pay X% commission, okay? So that's already agreed. So you're not going to save any money there. They're paying, let's say 6%. I'm paying a 6% commission. And in that listing agreement, it says that the realtor, the listing realtor, it says if another agent brings the buyer, the listing broker, will give the buyer's broker half of it.
Right.
So the seller's there's no incentive for them to discount their thing. Now, I don't know if some people negotiate with the listing agent, but if you're a layperson, you don't know how that works, and you're not going to get but basically, the long and short of it is, I'm rambling a little bit. I'm trying to think of a way to say things that are very layperson friendly. But essentially, the seller has signed a listing agreement already agreeing to pay X% commission, whether you have a buyer's agent, two buyer's agent, or anything. They've already agreed to what the commission is.
Yep.
So the misconception that they don't have, the seller doesn't have to pay a buyer's agent. That's not how these listing agreements work.
Right. Yeah, it's not true.
They're paying an X% commission, whether it's to a listing agent and a buyer agent, or to a listing agent. Most of the time. Now there's
Yeah, some nuance to it. So I kind of had a question. I was always curious about this. Can a realtor lie? like in a case of, you always have these cases where it's like, the listing agent says, all of a sudden the property's been on the market for 60 days.
Yep.
Buyer goes in, likes it. He's like, oh, he really likes it. They submit an offer. Oh, there just so happens to be another offer. And so the listing agent says, listen, I have another offer, so we need highest and best.
Yep.
But maybe the listing agent's lying. I don't know. Is there any liability there? Can a listing agent lie like that?
Yeah, I guess from a legal perspective, obviously, personally, no, don't lie. I hope nobody does that. But so when you're a licensed real estate salesperson, there's certain requirements to become a licensed agent. And one of those, when you become a licensed person in the industry, you're governed by a certain laws. So it's Florida Statute 475, and one of the things about that says that a broker has to deal on. It says honestly and fairly. So there's a list of requirements. You have to do this. You have to do that. Yeah. You have to deal honestly and fairly. So by statute, a realtor is required to be honest, right? So when they become a licensed salesperson, the state says you have to deal honestly and fairly. Now, as far as recourse, so we've talked about this. I think we were talking about this briefly before, but sometimes it's salesmanship. So how much is salesmanship and how much is lying, right? There's a lot of interest in the property, make an offer. That's a sales technique.
Right. Yeah.
To what point is it lying, I guess is the question. And there is liability on real estate brokers. There's a lot of releases within their listing agreements and within what we call the FAR bar contract, which is the Florida Realtors and the Florida Bar team up to make a contract so that people don't have to get a lawyer to redraft a contract every time. And it has some releases of the broker too. But, if the broker goes out of their way to make what we call fraudulent misrepresentation, they know the roof has a huge leak and they say, the roof works great. The roof is fine. Yes, absolutely, you're exposed to liability. So if you make a fraudulent misrepresentation that the buyer has damages because of that, the real estate broker can actually absolutely be liable. So you can't make any kind of fraud. And that goes for sellers too. Even though we sign, I'd say most transactions are as-is contract, meaning hey, it's as-is, I'm not making any repairs. There's still a requirement in that contract, and by Florida law, you have to disclose any material latent defects. So it doesn't matter if I'm selling, if it's a residential property, this is only a residential. If I sell you a house and I write on a big as-is, I make no warranties, it doesn't matter how many times I write that. Florida law requires, and same thing with brokers, that if you know of a material latent defect, material meaning it would affect.
If you knew there was black mold.
It would affect how much you would offer, or if you would even buy it. Right. Latent meaning it's not visible to the untrained eye, so it's behind a wall or it's up in the ceiling. And it's a defect, meaning it's a physical problem with the property. Then you got to disclose that. It doesn't matter how many disclosures you give. So there are some cases out there where real estate brokers have been held liable for, fraudulently inducing, going out of their way to lie about something. So, no, you can't lie, I guess is the short answer. And also, this is not legal advice. I think that usually when the lawyers on a show, they give this long disclaimer, like the pharmaceutical companies.
We'll put it put it on. I remember a story one time.
You can't lie. So there's salesmanship, but you can't go out of your way to commit a fraud, and lie about the property. But, I think it gets questionable when you're talking about salesmanship, like, oh, we have some other offers,
Right. Yeah, I remember the story where I had a client, they were renting a property, we got them pre-approved, and then their landlord said, hey, listen, I'll sell you this property that they're renting. They've been renting there for a year. So they ended up using the seller had a real estate or title company they were using. So they put the contract together. We started processing the deal. We asked them, hey, are you getting inspections? Because we at least need the wind mitigation and 4-point for insurance.
Minimum, yeah.
And they didn't, they forgoed inspections.
Okay.
So the guy calls me like 2 months later. He's like, hey, listen, we have a problem. I was like, well, you closed, but what's the problem? He's like, we started smelling some stuff and we tore down some drywall and there's black mold all over the inside of the house. Like, so they got to literally demolish like a good portion of the drywall within the house. He's like, what kind of recourse do I have? I'm like, well, I'm not an attorney, so I don't know, but you decided not to do an inspection.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you were already living there. I go, I don't know. I mean, but if the seller knew about that and he didn't disclose it, then he could be liable, right? But how would you even prove that he didn't know?
So you have to, it has to be, so I said they have to disclose any material latent defect that they are aware of.
Right.
So
the seller in that case was like,
the problem is after you close, the challenge is how do you prove they knew about it?
Right.
So you got to track down different contractors. Sometimes you can look at, there's ways to do it. You got to be creative. How do you got to prove they knew about it, right? Because if they didn't know about it, they don't have to disclose it. And then you have to hope they have money or some kind of recoming. They might have sold the property and moved off to, so exactly. So you got to actually go after them, hope they have money. And then, but the biggest problem with that after closing is proving that they knew about it.
Right.
That's always the challenge on those cases.
Getting back to the realtor liability, like, is a realtor liable if they say, like, for example, this property, you can put a shed in the backyard, and maybe that shed isn't, like, due to zoning, you can't put a shed in the backyard.
Yeah.
Like, would they be liable for that? Like, if they talk about, like, certain, like, zoning or ordinances within a city?
Well, yes, you could be. But again, it goes back to, like, what's salesmanship and what's, if you had a casual conversation, you say, oh, yeah, shed would look great back there. I think that'd be great. And then the buyer sues them and says, I can't put a shed there. The zoning won't allow it. They would say, I didn't say you could do it by law. I just said it would look great, and sure, you could build it physically there. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a land use and zoning attorney. You had an inspection period, and within that contract, it says that you're supposed to check, your zoning and for permitting and all that kind of stuff. So I doubt they'd have liability for that. But if I'm giving advice to a realtor, if somebody asks you, can you do something physically to a property, you say, I'm not. You don't need to check with the city, make sure it's all, the code works and everything. But if you're asking me, would it look cool and can it physically fit there? Yeah, shed would look great there, and you could fit it there, sure. But I can't. If you're asking me legally, are you gonna have the problem with the HOA or with the city? I can't make any representation about that. But here's the numbers to the HOA. Here's the numbers to to the city zoning building department. Yeah. But so that would be the question: are they just saying physically, sure, go ahead and build it? So yeah, I wouldn't I doubt any real estate agent would put in writing like that shed would look great there, and you can build it there. I'm sure the city would not have any issue. The city would not, you just basically need to disclose to them, check with you need to check with appropriate, and that's a reason if you had an attorney, they can check those things for you. We do, if we don't do it on all deals, we don't want to overkill, but if you have a transaction where somebody's curious about making certain improvements, we can check the local zoning and say, hey, the setback lines are this. You're in this zoning. Here's what it is. And sometimes, if it's really complex, like all commercial deals, we get what we call a zoning confirmation letter in our industry, which is I get an actual written letter from any municipality or authority that governs it to specifically state, it's in compliance. Here's what you can do here. Here's the zoning. So we have that letter from them, so we don't have a problem in the future.
So let's talk about a question I get a lot is, for investors that are purchasing, can I close an LLC with financing? So that's kind of more of a financing question. But what are the advantages of closing an LLC legally for an investor?
I think it's just liability thing. If let's say you own 20 properties in your name individually, or even if you own it in the same LLC, and you got one rogue tenant, let's say you made a mistake and you have some liability. Somebody gets a lien on one of those properties, it can spread to all your properties that are titled the same.
Right.
Same thing if there's a code enforcement lien. If you're in a town and you have 8 properties and one of them gets a code enforcement lien, that lien spreads to all the other.
Really?
You get a judgment. If John Doe gets a judgment, let's say you get something happens and your business deal goes wrong, you get sued for $1 million, they enter a judgment. That judgment can be recorded, and it will encumber all the counties that are in the name of John Doe. There's exceptions for homestead property. So it's good to have different separate LLCs for each property just for liability purposes. Yeah. If somebody slips and fall, if you have you obviously you get insurance for this kind of thing, but slip and fall at one of your properties or something, they get a judgment against you in the name of that property you own. That name, it spreads to all the property you own, that judgment. So if you own you're just trying to limit your liability. That's
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I in a separate LLC. If you look at a lot of experienced investors, you'll just see they have separate LLCs for all their different properties.
Yep.
Bit of a pain, like bookkeeping. What do I call it? Most people just call it the property address LLC.
Yeah.
But that's the main reason, and that's a conversation to have with your lender, because there's certain loans you can't, and you advise people on that, on how to structure it. Something to talk about your insurance agent with, and something to talk to your accountant about as well, about how to structure it.
Right.
And sometimes, a lot of times if you have a lot of properties and a lot of different complex things going on, even an estate plan attorney and a corporate law attorney, which we work with, and if it gets to that point where I say, hey, you might want to, get your estate plan attorney involved, and let's make have your trust be a member of the LLC, and then let's talk to this corporate attorney, because sometimes people have partners, or I want my child to be a member of the company for the shield, so
right.
It's you get to the stage where getting a ton of properties, it's good to get accountant, estate planning attorney, and a corporate law attorney involved to beyond. I'm what they call a dirt lawyer, so I'm focusing on the real estate. The corporate law and estate planning law, it's a whole different realm. So so it's kind of a team effort in that regard.
Yeah, we get a lot of the questions on LLCs. Pretty much any investor buying a property, they always want to put an LLC. The issue there is if you go with a conventional loan, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac do not allow you to close an LLC, but if you make 12 payments on time, they allow you to transfer it to an LLC. So it's one of those things where you can put it in an LLC, but you have to wait a year.
Yep.
There are other loan products where you can close an LLC, but the rates are higher. So it's like
So from your perspective, that's what I say. It's you got to talk to all these professionals, because sometimes if you only have one investment property, it's like, what's the risk that the liability? I'm going to get such a better rate. I got liability insurance. I've got this. I'm not doing a bunch of business deals all over the world where I'm going to get sued by random people. And you're a responsible landlord. It's not a problem. Now, some people want they want to put their homestead in LLC, and in Florida, and if you have people from out of state watching, in Florida we have very strong homestead protection from creditors. So you don't have and creditors, besides creditors you pledge the property as collateral, like the mortgage company, can't come after your homestead in Florida. So you can keep the homestead in your individual name.
Yeah, they can't kick you out of your house.
Yep.
Cool. So what about? Yeah, I had a situation recently where we had a buyer sign a contract, beautiful little townhouse, gets through inspections, appraisal, loans approved, everything's cool. Closing in a couple weeks, not a big deal. The listing agent sends over a notice saying, well, the seller has decided not to sell the property.
Yeah.
So what happens?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a nuanced question, and when you ask the classic lawyer answer is always, it depends, because there's so many different variables.
So
but generally speaking, the seller doesn't close, and let's say they've defaulted. They have no reason to do it other than they don't want to do it, and there's no contractual basis for it. Yep. The contract you've signed, hopefully, and if you use a realtor, they're going to use the form FAR contract, and it's going to have certain remedies for the buyer, and usually those are twofold. There's you can just terminate the deal and get a return of your deposit, or you can pursue what we call specific performance. And specific performance is, I'm the buyer. I want you to specifically perform exactly what we agreed to. So you file suit, a lien goes on the property, and a judge determines, I see the contract, everything was done, the appraisal, all this was done, the buyer did everything it was supposed to do, it was supposed to close, and you just didn't close. They entered an order forcing the seller to close and paying attorney's fees and costs, et cetera. So the contract, if you use a realtor to have a good form, and the contract will have remedies built into it.
Gotcha.
And recourse. So
you have to close if the buyer performs.
Yeah. So for sellers, the conversation is,
you're
probably going to end up having to close, and you're going to have to pay their attorney's fees and costs if there's really no reason,
right,
for you not to close, So
exactly, just got cold feet.
Yeah.
But nothing you can do about it.
Yep.
I was looking through the contract. And I was just looking at all the questions that we always get on, on contractual questions. But another question I get a lot from realtors is on the financing contingency side, and I think there's still a little confusion. I mean, I think it's pretty clear the way the contract's
I think over the year, if you've been in it a while,
but it keeps changing.
Well, this contract, like I said, it's called the FAR Bar contract, was the Florida Association of Realtors and the Florida Bar. And the Florida Association of Realtors has a committee that works on this diligently, and the Florida Bar has a committee that works on this diligently. And they team up to create, hopefully, a contract that is fairly, even, that is fairly straightforward, that your average buyer and seller and realtor can fill in the blanks, and there's a template for anything that could go wrong. It's covered. Now it's like, 13 pages, and there's like 25 different addendums you can just put on it. So it's almost impossible, and I think lawyers take a lot of slack because lawyers make things too complicated, but it's just, there's so many things that could happen, so you gotta, but the financing contingency has changed quite a bit over the years, and it even it also changes depending on what's going on in other areas of the law. When the federal government puts some laws out that change certain things about lending, this contract has to change to adjust to that. Yeah. But yeah, it's changed. There's been a bunch of reiterations over the years, and usually that happens because there's cases that come out where somebody's done something, and it's a scenario you never thought of. It's like, oh, we never thought, who'd have thunk this would be a legal issue, and the court ruled a certain way, so you got to adjust the contract to kind of reflect that. But I think it's fair if you read it, take the time to sit down and read it. I think it's a good contract, and people can understand it. But yeah, there's a lot of confusion about. I'd say the biggest thing is from a layperson's perspective, or a realtor perspective, is know the deadlines, know the timelines. That's important.
Yeah, know your financing contingency.
Your financing contingency deadline is huge.
You have to provide a copy of that loan approval.
You need to produce it. If you don't produce it, you risk the seller saying, "Hey, you didn't produce it. I'm terminating. I'm not going to wait around for you to close if you don't have the loan approval."
Right.
Make sure the lender you get with, like the great team at here at Ryan Brown's office, gets the appraisal done.
Has to be done within the
old contract, and that's why there's confusion too, because it changes. It used to be once you got the loan approval, you could still cancel like up till the closing date if the appraisal came in too low. But that kind of was unfair to sellers. You think about a seller, they got a loan approval, and 60 days later the buyer says, I didn't appraise the day before closing. It was like, what? I thought the financing continues. So it was confusion. So they changed it to say loan approval includes getting that appraisal done.
That's right.
So if you got a 30-day financing contingency, you got to get loan approval and you got to get the appraisal. But if you've been in the industry a while, it used to be the appraisal was done. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes the appraisals were done 4 or 5 days before closing. It was completed. Now you got to expedite it. So it's important to have a good lender who can get on top of that for you. And you could probably explain more, but I know that you have contacts. If a random buyer just calls to try to get an appraisal, you're going to be waiting. It's going to we're 45 days out, but you order hundreds of, you order a ton of appraisals so you can get it done like that. And that's very important to have a good lender, and even a local lender who knows the local appraisers, who has connections that can get you that appraisal done quick. Because if you don't get the appraisal done in time, you risk running past the deadline and you risk losing your deal, possibly losing your deposit, et cetera, if you don't meet those deadlines in the contract.
Right. Yeah, so you got to work with a great lender. The agent really has to stay on top of those deadlines, because if they don't produce that to the seller, the way the contract reads is it's now like assumed you're approved. Like even if you don't produce it, they're just going to assume you are approved and the appraisal is cleared.
Yep.
So the issue there is if you needed an extension, or say the appraisal's not back yet, or they're not fully approved yet, and you didn't request that extension to financing, their deposit's gone if they don't close or they can't get approved.
Yep.
And it's interesting. I had a deal like that a few months ago where, for whatever reason, the client couldn't get like one of his tax documents, and it was like dragging on and on with a CPA. So I contacted the agent, let him know that we're going to need like a 3-day extension on the financing approval because we're still waiting on these documents. I also sent an email. Mm-hmm. The agent got busy, forgot to request the extension. So the day kind of comes and goes, and then all of a sudden there was an issue. And so at the end of the day, it went into like a contract dispute or whole type of thing. But in that case, the listing agent was going to sue the buyer's agent. So they're saying, or no, not the buyer was going to sue the buyer's agent, saying that, hey, listen, you never sent that over, you're liable. Yeah,
there's that statutory list of things you have to do as a licensed agent, which is, act diligently. I forget, I used to know it, but you have to, you have to be competent and do what you're supposed to do. So yeah.
So you have to stay on top of those dates. It's super important. Like 9 times out of 10, it's never an issue.
Yeah.
But
I'd say not just you in terms of the dates, but also it's important to, and you guys do, keep people updated. I think for a seller, if you need that extension, a seller's more willing to give it if throughout the process you've been giving them every 4 or 5 days, like, hey, the appraiser should be out there next week, or hey, they got all their financial stuff into the and the contract requires that you within blank days get everything submitted to a lender to get you approved. So, and it does say in there the seller and the seller's agent can you're authorized to get updates from the lender. So I think it's important to just keep them updated as you go, and it creates good faith. So if you do need an extension, you've been updating them throughout the process. Instead of waiting for the 30 days, you don't have any communication. On the 29th day, you say, we need a 10-day extension. And they're like,
yep.
What happened? Why didn't you didn't see this coming? And because, sellers are, most of the time, it's a single family, they're living there. It's a single family home they live in, and they're trying to plan their life. They got kids that are going to school, they're moving to a different place. So they like to be updated, and you create goodwill by keeping people in the loop. And you guys do a good job of a good lender does provide those updates and kind of let everybody know what's going on.
Yeah, we do a weekly update. We call it our Terrific Tuesday update day. So like every Tuesday, no matter what, everybody gets updated. Buyer's agent, list agent, title company. Yep. We started including the title companies a couple years ago because the title companies would then throw us under the bus saying, oh, we haven't heard from you in 2 weeks. I'm like, well, we already have the title commitment. There's really not a lot of, we don't need much from you. So now we just include them in our updates, which is great because the title companies love it.
No, it's good for everybody to know. And you're that's just a good way of doing business. And it helps you negotiate down the road if you need more time because you've been updating them and they know you're working hard at it. And the contract has language that says you will act in good faith to get your loan approved. Yeah. So you need to show them. It's good to show them like, hey, I'm not just coming to you on the 29th day of a 30-day deadline and pausing your life and keeping the property on the market. I've been updating you. I'm working in good faith to get this approved as fast as possible so we can close this thing as fast as possible for you as the seller. So
it's much easier to negotiate it a couple weeks in advance than the day before closing.
That's for sure. And you just kind of set them up for it and they're prepared for it.
It's funny. Sometimes I'll get a call where the listing agent will call me and be like, he's like, they'll be like, I don't know why I'm not getting any updates. It's been like 3 weeks. I haven't gotten any updates. I'm not getting any communication. This isn't like your team. Yeah. And I was like, well, the client never went with us. Like, maybe they used our pre-approval to get approved. And like sometimes that'll happen where, they'll use our pre-approval to get approved locally, but then they're using their bank out of New York. And, we try to get the deal, but you just, you can't win every single
I would say
deal.
a lot of issues that arise are there's a ton of legal issues, but a lot is just practical stuff. Like, do simple things.
But most lenders
keep
don't
everybody
do
happy.
it.
Yeah.
They just don't do it.
Yep.
A couple of the questions on the contract was condos. So does a condo approval fall within a financing contingency deadline? Because right now there's a lot of condo issues out there, and it's, the way we work is once we get a contract, if it's a condo, we either check it if it's already approved or we have to get it approved. Mm-hmm. And then we have to work with the management company at the association to make sure that their financials are in order. They got to fill out a questionnaire. We have to get it approved. It's a whole underwriting process. Yep. So a lot of lenders do this at the last minute. Yeah. And it's kind of a problem. So you'll have the financing contingency maybe 10 days. So the financing contingency comes and goes, loans approved, appraisals in, all that's good. And then the week before closing, they're like, oh yeah, well the building doesn't have reserves and we can't get the building approved for Fannie Mae guidelines. Yeah. Now, is that separate from the financing contingency or is that included in the financing?
I would say it's included, but that's a very nuanced question. It depends. It depends. It's my legal advice. So the financing contingency does it says, you got this loan approval deadline, and after that, there's certain little things you can get out for still, but it doesn't specifically say after the loan approval period, you can still get out of the deal if the condo, if the lender can't get the condo approved. So I would say no, make sure you get that done within the loan approval deadline, and I think that's what you guys do. Yeah. I wouldn't risk waiting because there's ambiguity. Now, you do have a separate there's a form rider to the contract that calls for the buyer to be approved, so the buyer there's a few different ways to argue that, but you do have a contingency for the buyer to be approved, but it doesn't say specifically the buyer approved with their financing. That's just for, they do criminal background checks of the buyer, things like that. But I guess my general answer is no, but as with everything in law, it depends.
It depends. That's what we're learning today.
But I would say if somebody asked me generally, I would say no. Get that done during your loan approval deadline. Absolutely, do not risk waiting. Yep. But I also don't want somebody to. If I have a client that doesn't do that and have to help them out, I don't want somebody to play this video and say, "You said they can't get it." There's a clip of you from 2023 where you said they could get their money back. So, I would say no. You need to get that done in the loan approval deadline.
What about title? So, I mean, let's just say you don't get the title work until 5 days before closing, and there's issues on title, and you hire an attorney, and your attorney's reviewing it and say, hey, listen, though, there's an issue.
Yeah.
There's an issue on the survey.
Yep.
Like, does that fall within financing contingency? Or
no, but you got separate, similar to the condo approval thing,
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't want to recap that, but we have specific provisions about when is the survey due, who gets the survey, what is considered an issue with the survey, specifically, when is title supposed to be delivered. So you, as a buyer, you should receive a title commitment showing all the encumbrances, who owns the property, what mortgages there are. It's a complete title report. And you as the buyer should have that delivered to you per contract, and you should have a certain amount of time to review it and make any objections. And it also states what can be an objection and what can't, right? Like an easement for somebody to drive through the middle of your house is obviously something you can object to. A utility easement around 10 feet of your property line, you can't really object to that. It's considered, you accept that. But there's certain contractual provisions that require the title to be delivered, and certain things about the survey that are addressed, I think, very good in that contract. And you just kind of follow it to a T. But as a seller, make sure your attorney or closing agent, make sure they need to deliver that to the buyer appropriately with everything attached, et cetera. Otherwise, you could face delays in closing because the buyer does have the opportunity to review those things.
Tell me about some fraud scams that are going around.
Ooh, some fraud scams. There's a lot of them. There's obviously the big thing is for everybody's just wires. I mean, that's the most common thing.
Yep.
That's not real estate specific, I don't think, but you got a lot of, just as if you're watching this and you're buying a home, you're going to have to wire money. People don't, because there were so many scams with cashier's checks. Everybody requires wires. There are scams with wires. Just make sure when you're sending a wire, make sure you know the office you're sending it to. Make sure you've confirmed the exact wire instructions. If anything weird happens, you could get an email because what happens is, that'll be a whole nother episode. Be careful with wires.
Well, they'll send a phishing email making it look like it's coming from you, but it's not from you, from the law office.
Yeah, I've had people get emails they may get an email from Ryan Brown that says Ryan Brown's got your signature and everything, but it's actually from, Ryan Brown at hotmail.com or something, because some scammer made a fake email, not because you did anything wrong, and you have servers to protect. Your professional organization has, I'm sure. Yeah. I don't even know. We have so much. The IT guys come and talk to me, and my head's spinning. I'm like, what? What do we have? We have this and this and this. But what happens is, you as the individual, you have a Yahoo account. It gets hacked. So then somebody's controlling your email, and they're sending emails from a made-up email. It looks like it's from Ryan Brown telling you to send a wire to a weird location. So
if you're sending a wire, you got the wire instructions, pop on your phone, go to Google their office, call their phone number, and just confirm the wire instructions.
Look who actually sent the email.
Yep.
And then don't even rely on the email. I've seen them where they make a phone number for a title company, and you call it. It's like Alex for Ryan Brown, and you call. And I've done this for them. Like, this seems fishy. And I call the number, and it's doesn't sound like somebody works there. It's like, right. This is Alex. It's usually a international. They usually get them. They transfer them here, and they get it international somewhere. Yep. This guy with an accent that's like, which doesn't imply that that's the case, but there's multiple red flags, and then they're like, "Oh, this is Alex." It's like, okay, I was calling for Ryan. I'm trying to send a wire. It's like, "Oh yeah, send the wire." It's like, is it these wire instructions for this Canadian bank? It's usually a weird bank, or it's like, and it's like, yeah, that's it. Go ahead and wire it. And it's like, and it's usually not the right amount. They want you to wire more or less, or it's like 5 days before closing. It's like, why are they asking me to wire money? But don't even rely on the number in the email. Make sure it's the number you have for the person you're working with. Right. Make sure you hear their voice. Yep. So just be very careful.
What other scams are going around?
There's always the Craigslist scam, squatters. There's a vacant land scam. It's good. I was gonna say good. It's not good. It's a good scam in the sense that they're getting away with it. So good for the scammers. You got a lot of scammers that pose as people. There's they identify a piece of vacant land. Sometimes they can go through a realtor. Call a realtor. Hey, I'm John Doe. I own this land on this road. The realtor goes by. You're not meeting anybody there. Like, okay, cool. All right, I'm gonna send you a listing agreement. We'll get it listed. They have no clue. They get it listed, everything, and the guys that gets a fake identification. And now we have online notaries and things like that, or they know a notary that they have a fake notary stamp, and they do a whole closing without. That was going on a lot. We caught a few of those a couple of years ago. That was really going on a lot. You got, like I was talking to someone just before this, when you're buying a mortgage foreclosure, be careful. Then that's just people hiding liens or maneuvering things to deceive you about what liens may be outstanding on the property.
So if you're an investor buying at the courthouse, you're buying foreclosures, make sure you're getting the title search.
Yep, a lot of scams there. There's all the same thing with people posing on. I've seen people sign leases. Like, I got somebody buying a property and they go, there's somebody living here and they claim they bought it. They got this quick claim deed because they didn't. It's usually an ad on Craigslist. Like, I'm selling this house, $10,000 cash, and I'll sign it over to you. And then they move in. It's like, I've had that happen before. We were about to close. And I went to the walk. There's a guy living there who claims he bought it. He bought it from some random guy who faked like he was the owner. Same thing with leases. They'll sign leases. They'll find a vacant, abandoned property a bank owns, change the lock, and put an ad up real quick. Get somebody there today, sign a lease. Hey, give me $5,000. Go ahead and move in. There's a lot of. I could talk all day about the scams. But again, to go back to working with if you work with a professional, they'll identify those things.
Yep.
I've seen all those scams, a ton of them. So I have the spidey sense for the scams, as you probably do too. So I can kind of sense when things are getting weird. And we've sniffed out so many scams that we catch because we're an industry. So if you're doing hundreds of transactions a month, you're inevitably going to run into them, and you can identify it.
Yep, 100%. Well, I wanted to move into a little rapid fire.
Uh-oh, here we go.
All right. Rapid fire question number 1. Favorite Florida water activity?
Well, I would say the most common activity I do is probably water tubing. I have a niece, 13-year-old niece, that loves tubing. And every weekend or anytime I get home or in the evening, it's always, can we go tubing? Can we go tubing? We have a boat and a tube, and they will tube all day. Nice. So that's probably my favorite, just because I enjoy doing it with the family, and she enjoys it so much. So, and we do it a ton. So she saw this video, and I said something else. She'd be like, "You don't like it? We like to tube." So she likes it. She water ski, tubing, things like that. Yep. Nice. So I would say water sports. I like anything on the water is a blast to me. Just cruising, having a cold drink, or spear fishing or fishing or anything. But I'd say water sports, tubing, skiing, things like that.
Nice. Favorite business book?
Favorite business book? Man, there's so many. I can't think of one off the top of my head. I would say anyone that is about like the dynamic of dealing with people. Not I don't know. I've never got a lot out of business books that are specific on how to invest in this specific thing, but they're always general management, general time, people managing things. Simon Sinek has a good book, couple good books, business books. I'm trying to think the different titles. But I would say those. I got into a thing where I read a lot of them. I kind of tapered off now, but there's not one specific one I would say that really. But I would say it's good to for me, just reading a bunch of them, getting a bunch of different perspectives. Yeah. And not specific, but just general business ones I think are good. But man, I can't. I'd say anything. I'd say a couple of those Simon Sinek books, Sinek. He's got a couple of good ones that I really enjoyed. Okay, cool. Lunch with one person, dead or alive? Lunch with one person, dead or alive. I was excluding family. Obviously, I'd always say a deceased family member. Let's say a celebrity, because that'd be more interesting for people. They don't know my grandpa. He was like, let's see, man, that's a good question. I would go super historic, just Jesus Christ maybe, or that'd be cool. I would go way back, just like to the beginning of civilization type thing, or like some of the old. I don't know. I'd go back some of the old, something like that, way back. Breaking some bread with JC, man. That would be amazing. Yeah, I would get like a super. Yeah, I think I would pick that, something like that. I wouldn't pick anybody recent. I'd really be interested in just. I'm always making comparisons like for psychology purposes, like what would the cavemen do? What are like when you're trying to think, why are people doing what they do? I always think, what's human psychology? So think about what cavemen did and why our bodies are trained to react the way they do. And I think so meeting someone from 2,000 years ago, well, obviously Jesus Christ for reasons that are obvious. So I would say that. Nice. I can't think of a more famous person, right? Favorite sports team? Favorite sports teams? I'm a big Florida State Seminole football fan. I'm an alumni, and I'm a big fan, and I got my tickets for the season. I'm looking forward to the season. There you go. Finally good again. Favorite local restaurant? Favorite local restaurant? I'd say last night I went to Captain Charlie's in Juno Beach. I love that place. Good spot, yeah. I like the low-key vibe, and all the food is delicious. The staff, very friendly. Yeah. So I'm always, as a business owner, you're always every business I go into, I analyze it like, well, look at that staff. Look at the way they're doing that. They just run a great operation with such a friendly. They would do a good job of retention. You go in there and it's the same. You'll get the waiter you had 5 years ago. They're super friendly, and but the food is delicious too. Just a cool place. Captain Charlie's Reef Grill, I believe they call it, right there in Juno Beach. I'd say that's my favorite.
And I think the next question we already answered today. What's your favorite law advice?
My favorite legal advice is it depends.
And housing market prediction for Palm Beach County.
I don't.
The end of this year.
You know,
up, down, sideways.
I don't know. My dad was in real estate. He always say, "I don't have a crystal ball." People always ask him. I always hear him say that, but it's really true. There's so many, you know, and I would say books on economics are cool, but just trying to guess what the economy is going to. There's so many factors, you know, governmental and just like, you know, weather. I mean, just, you know, COVID-19, that made such an impact on our market. There's no way to predict that. Yeah. When there's upcoming election, we have no way to predict what's going to happen with taxes and how people are going to move for that. You know, there's just, if we have a big hurricane here or something, people, you know, you notice that you have a big hurricane, people are kind of nervous about moving here. I don't even when remember was it ｃSA, the condo in Miami that fell, you know, that was a strange thing that all of a sudden condo sales slowed down because it was all over the national news. Nobody wanted to buy a condo. So, man, it's like, I would say my thoughts on that are just get up and work hard every day and try to help people because there's no way to tell what's going to happen in the real estate market. Yeah, I have no clue.
It all depends.
Yeah, it depends. Classic lawyer answered everything.
It all depends. That's what we learned today. Well, Kyle, man, it's been a great chatting with you. Thanks for coming in.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
A lot of respect for you, man. Yeah, you're the best.